The death of Queen Elizabeth has sent a nation into mourning. On Monday, one of the biggest state funerals in history will be held in London, with hundreds of thousands of people descending on the capital to pay their final respects to the nation's longest-reigning monarch. But how much will the funeral, preparations and security cost, and who's footing the bill? Express.co.uk looks at what we know. The Queen's funeral will be the first held for a monarch since the death of her father, King George VI, more than 70 years ago, and will be the first held for a monarch in Westminster Abbey since 1760. The ceremony is set to be attended by many of the world's foremost political leaders, including US President Joe Biden, Prime Minister of New Zealand Jacinda Ardern, French President Emmanuel Macron and the Emperor of Japan. Members of royal families from across Europe including Spain, the Netherlands and Sweden, many of whom bear a distant blood relation to the Queen, are also expected to be present. Although the exact cost of the Queen's funeral is unlikely to be disclosed, state and ceremonial services past indicate the price tag could easily run up to £10 million. Exactly where the money will come from is still unclear, though it's expected it will be part funded by the taxpayer, with the family picking up some of the bill, too. The Queen herself shared the cost of the Queen Mother's funeral in 2002, with the ceremony reported to have cost around £4 million. A significant amount is expected to have been set aside for the Queen's funeral over recent years, by both royalty and government. The Queen's funeral will likely cost millions of pounds to British taxpayers. Image, Getty. Catherine, Princess of Wales and Sophie, Countess of Wessex watch as the Queen's coffin arrives. Image, Getty. The occasion will mark the first state funeral held in the country since that of wartime Prime Minister Sir Winston Churchill on January 30, 1965. The Queen Mother and Prince Philip's funerals were similar, but of a lower-ranking ceremonial description. State funerals are conducted in line with a strict protocol, comprising elements of religious and military tradition, and are a public ceremony held in honor of a person of national significance. The organization of major ceremonial state events, such as coronations, the state opening of Parliament and state funerals, are the responsibility of the Earl Marshal. As the name implies, state funerals are funded by the state, the bill ultimately falling to the tax-paying British public. Read more. Andrew sports military medals but no uniform in Queen's procession. The last state funeral was held for Sir Winston Churchill in 1965. Image, Getty. The planned queuing route for the Queen's lying in state. Image, Express. A detailed financial breakdown of the Queen's funeral proceedings is unlikely to be released in the near future, but a look back at previous events provides a good indication. Princess Diana's funeral in 1997 is estimated to have cost between £3 and £5 million. The Queen Mother's funeral in 2002 reportedly cost £5.4 million. According to a House of Commons research briefing paper, policing costs amounted to £4.3 million of this total, while her lying in state came to £825,000. Former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher was given a ceremonial funeral in 2013, with a service at St Paul's Cathedral attended by 2,300 people, and cost £3.6 million according to Downing Street. The Duke of Edinburgh's funeral cost significantly less because of coronavirus restrictions in place at the time, but also because the Duke himself decided not to lie in state. Don't miss: energy companies explain how customers will get £400 winter rebate. Analysis: man, 38, charged for holding eggs near Queen's coffin. Reaction: parents refuse to send kids to dumping ground school 5 miles away. report Russia TV close to panic as pundits grappling with Ukraine advance. Latest, Royal Guards march at the Horse Guards Parade as part of the Queen's coffin procession. Image, Getty, with millions of people expected to line the streets of the procession and up to 2,000 high-profile mourners attending the ceremony, security will undoubtedly make up the largest share of funeral expenses. Speaking to ITV on Friday, former Metropolitan Police Commander Bob Broadhurst said, "By the end of the week you start to click into what will be, I would say almost certainly, the biggest security operation the country has ever seen. Practically every nation on Earth is going to want to send their king, queen, prime minister or president for the funeral." The event is expected to require approximately 10,000 officers to be on duty in London alone in the run-up to the funeral, numbers not seen since the capital hosted the 2012 Olympics. Estimated costs have not been disclosed, but will undoubtedly run into the millions of pounds. The Met spent almost £3.5 million on protecting then US President Donald Trump during a 3-day state visit in 2019, in an operation involving 6,300 officers, according to figures released under the Freedom of Information Act. The Queen's lying in state will continue until the early hours of the morning of her funeral, before the coffin is carried in a military procession from the Palace of Westminster to Westminster Abbey for the state funeral. Throughout the week, British Army troops and military horses have been taking to the streets of London in the early hours of the morning to rehearse for the 4,500-strong parade. The Queen's funeral procession route, Image, Express, trending in his first meeting with the Privy Council on Saturday. King Charles III confirmed the day of the Queen's funeral would be a bank holiday across the UK. Schools and public offices will be closed, and although it remains at the owner's discretion, most post offices, banks, shops and other businesses are also likely to close as a mark of respect. Although the UK may benefit from increased tourism revenue as mourners travel to the country from abroad, analysts are forecasting the day will lead to negative economic growth in September. Off the back of lower-than-expected GDP growth figures for July released earlier this week, economic research consultancy Pantheon Macroeconomics has projected output will be 0.2% lower in September as a result of the extra bank holiday, saying, "That suggests that a technical recession, widely defined as 2 quarters of declining GDP, is hanging in the balance." The latest government models put the cost of an extra bank holiday at £1.36 billion.